What's up, brother? What's up, man?
How's it going?
It's going well. We're live right now, I think.
Hang on, I can't hear you.
Let me find out what's going on with my BS here. Speaker. Okay, I got you. My audio says it's working.
I have computer audio. I don't have you audio. Wait.
Yeah, Facebook has me audio.
Got it.
Okay,
Got it.
cool. What's going on, dude?
I had it stuck in the wrong hole. What's going on? Nothing. I was literally sitting over, like, jumping into other people's Facebook arguments. I was like, just as I was thinking, this is a really shitty use of my time and I should find something better to do. I saw your post.
Hold on, I gotta go pause. I gotta go mute the. Go ahead. So what were people Facebook arguing about? I'm curious.
Somebody was, it was like arguing about somebody spreading fake news. Like, these guys are arguing about military spending and losing trillions, like the CIA lost trillions of dollars. And they're like,
he started on military spending.
Right. But then this one guy's like, I'm mad about the hundreds of computers that had to get confiscated due to child porn at the CIA or something like that. And it was like,
oh man,
the real story was one guy got busted and they, put him in jail for 4 years. And so the guy's like, don't spread fake news. And the fake news spreader is like, you're an asshole. So I had to jump in and be like, no, fake news spreader. You, in fact, are being the asshole. For no other reason than I was bored. Like, I just want to go call somebody an asshole. Like,
it's just I had a conversation with somebody who posted a picture of AOC, and I'm not even going to get into whose side I'm on because it doesn't fucking matter. But it was like a picture of her and her, one of those like perfect moment shots with something that's blatantly not true. And he's posting it on his Facebook page. And he had sent me a message and this is a guy that I don't talk to, who I've asked for before, like, don't talk to me. We're not friends anymore. You know what I'm saying? But he shoots me a message, and this is just my own, like, hey, why am I still friends with this guy on Facebook if I say this thing? So this is like a training process for me, and I'm going to share it with the listeners because this is what we do. So this guy shoots me a message. He's like, hey, check out the most recent picture of my Facebook thing. And I was like, why am I doing this? Okay, let's go. And so I went over there, and I immediately I went after him. Hey, you know that this quote, and I Googled it, blah, blah, blah. Fact checked it. This quote isn't real. Like, why are you posting this? He's like, oh, it's just a meme. It's just a joke. I was like, no, it's not. It's false. It's a lie. And then he was like, oh, you need to lighten up. And me and him have done a whole bunch of like long form, like 7-9 day trainings about like integrity and like personal growth and like being in integrity with yourself. And I was like, hey man, like me and you've done the same training. Like, how is this okay? How is this an integrity? Oh man, it's just a meme. You just got to lighten up. No, I don't have to lighten up. You keep telling me that. And I say, dude, and this is just a reminder. This is exactly why I had to uninvite you from being my homie. And I'm going to redo it, but this time, and I just like finally deleted all the stuff, and it was just like one of those things, like why? So I guess the moral of the story is, why didn't I do this the first time?
Right.
Like that's really the moral of the story.
Was there some reason, something keeping you attached to that person? Like, oh, we used to be boys, or we went through this, or like, because I find that people are hard to get rid of.
It's always about like that insecurity. Like, hey, I'm cutting this guy off. Like, don't message me anymore. Don't ever call me again. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like there's some ridiculous insecurity, lack of self-worth. If I have 1,601 Facebook friends instead of 1,602, like I'm losing out on something. Like It's one of those just completely BS. Here, I need to acknowledge this real quick. Hey, Amber, how are you? I'm reading this comment. I'm going to read it to you, Joel, and then we're going to get into this. I have one bad news for you and one good news. My good news is I'm pregnant. The bad news, I have cervical cancer. This is a really interesting time to bring that up. Does that make sense? So let's get weird about this. What do you think, Joel? Do you think that's an appropriate time to bring that up, or do you think it would have been more appropriate to contact me personally?
I think it's just another feather in the amazing Amber Morris hat that like she has come through, because like this is a public forum. This isn't just you and her. And like, first of all, I'm kind of like, wow, because I'm part of this too. And like, I listen to the podcast, and as every good podcast does, like I kind of feel like I know you guys, and you and I've had a couple conversations. I don't think I've ever talked to her, but to like just throw that on me immediately, I'm like, wow, like that's heavy. Both congratulations and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
But then I think, like, honestly, my first response is it doesn't matter whether it's in private or here, because that's the way she wanted to present it, first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, it speaks volumes to your relationship with you and her and the community.
This is a different Amber. This is not Amber Morris.
Oh, okay.
This is Amber Tiffany Winterton. Amber, thank you for sharing and being the focus of this conversation today, because this is how we do it on Monday nights on Do Weird Shit. We talk about the weird stuff. Joel, please finish. You see if
and that's not, even though I was a little bit misplaced there, still major point. This feeds to like the community that you're trying to build, that you are building, is like, this is a spot where we share. And it's like, hey, I have this thing and I don't know what to do with it. Here's a place where you can share and be open. And like, I'm kind of flabbergasted as far as the exact thing to say, besides like, if there's any way that I can be of support, let me know. But I think it speaks volumes to what you're creating, and what you're teaching people to do is to be open and honest and say, here's this thing I have, I want to communicate it, and I might not know where to go with it, but here it is. I need some help, Amber, or I need some support.
So even more context, Amber's one of my cousins. I've never met her before in my life. She's one of the spattered family members out there. And I think the interesting thing is that a different family member on McCare's side brought up something that was like really, it was like a heavy thing that she brought up. And I've never even met her before. She's like McCare's third cousin. And it was last week on this show too. So it's interesting too, because I'm glad that that's cultivated. Amber, I'm not really sure how to respond to this right now. That's like where I'm at. Like, I appreciate the information, yet I'm not really sure how to respond to that. Congratulations that you're having a baby. That's awesome. I'm sorry you have cervical cancer. Like, I don't really have anything more than that right now. So it's interesting to me that it's like 2 weeks in a row where family members, distant family members, I don't even know how we're related, Amber. I'm sorry. I just don't know. You know, I know we're friends on here, but I don't know how we're related. And so and so I'm maybe that's why I feel weird, because I don't even know that. You know, my dad has 7 brothers, so let's just put that into context. Like, my dad there's 8 boys in that side of the family, so that tree spread really quickly, you know. Maybe someday for sure, but it's indeed, such an interesting thing,
but I think that this always, Bill, I've watched some episodes of this and I appreciate you like letting me jump in, but I think that that's an interesting thing. Is like, what do you, maybe to go from there is like, what do you do when somebody gives you information? And that's what you do, is you just like, I don't have a response. I don't know what to say, but you came to me because you need support and help. It's like, is it best to say like, is there something that I can do for you? I support you. I'm here for you, but I don't know, more than that.
Yeah. Amber, did you get Joel's question? Is there anything we can add? And I think Dave asks, he brings up a really good question. Dave Mason brings up a really good question. How do we react? And like, what do we make it mean? And I guess that's, I guess for me, my reaction is there's these relatives out there that I've never met. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, just dropped it on me. It's like, all right, sweet. So yeah, Amber, if you need Amber Tiffany Winterton specifically, how can we support? Is there anything we can do for you today while we're here on this call, talking about whatever we want to talk about? I have no idea where Dustin is tonight. He's supposed to be on here tonight, and he's just not here.
He's probably off sweating or climbing a mountain, or
Dude,
I
he
mean,
climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in 50 hours.
I don't know this dude, but I've seen you talk to him. He seems pretty like a
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
intense dude.
Okay. All right. Amber just wanted to let me know. Amber, consider me known. Consider me in the know.
I am in the know as well,
Yeah,
Amber,
no.
and I wish you all the best. I hope that the good news gets gooder and the bad news gets less bad.
Less bad. Cool. People relate to cancer in a way it can be disempowering. No, that's actually no. I think it's a really good point that she brings it up. It's like, hey, this is just what's going on with me. Yeah. It's interesting. I'm gonna have to dig into this. I'll bring it more later. Cool. Yeah, we'll send them. Right on. So what else do you want to get into today? How have you been? I liked your tell me more about the post that you said today, how in November
Yeah.
maybe you went a little too hard.
I definitely feel I'm interested that that's your interpretation from that. Because I think that here I am, 4 or 5 months later after that whole experiment, that I did probably go a little too hard and I took a little too much time being lazy and back, falling back into old stuff after that. But the point that I was making was that, like, when I had set that whole thing in November up to drop all my vices, to do a podcast every day, to really really test myself in my growth, and in my realm as a practitioner and those kind of things. And so when I set my intention and said, here we go, I'm going to do this, and I started laying things out, like immediately, like the first 7 to 10 days of that were thick, like fights with the wife and fights with other people, and like things that, to look at it, I was like, this is going horrible in the first, little bit. But as I spoke with my mentor and started reframing things and was reminded, but no, this is the universe showing you these things. It was seriously like, once the mindset was right, it was like, here's a bad thing you're going to freak out about so you can fix it and move on. Here's a bad thing you're going to freak out and move it, and yell at this person or fight about this and fight about that. And finally there was like, my wife and I were having huge fights at the time. And it was this whole thing. I was getting presented with all these opportunities where we weren't communicating. And I was going through Reiki training with my mentor at the moment. And whether anybody, believes in that or not, I was having this thing as I was doing my chakra clearings, where every time it would get between the heart chakra and the throat chakra, I would get really physically uncomfortable. And I'm essentially just doing a meditation, and it's going through clearing different chakras that represent different things. And what I realized is I would get so physically uncomfortable there. And it was so related to why I was fighting with my wife, is because when I would get emotionally, the like, what I called it was the intersection of my communication and my emotions. Like, I couldn't manage it. I was too emotional to communicate properly. And that was like the biggest thing that the universe kept throwing at me. It kept throwing intense, upsetting situations at me, that if I would stop and go, that upsets me, and here's how we should move through it or navigate it, that I would be fine. And I would be so much stronger in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, when it was time for that lesson, it was like, here you go, like boom, 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 like 4 days in a row of just heavy learning in that realm. And every time I reframed it, it was like, oh, I'm actually, and this is probably one of the most ridiculous things my wife's ever heard me say, is like, I'm super happy that we had this big, huge fight.
No.
And I left and went and got on the phone and talked to my mentor for an hour while I drove around, and I came back in, and I'm like, this is just as much me as it is you, because I'm not communicating. We're not communicating. And it was like, she looked like it, that of course in the moment exploded the fight more, because I said, I'm happy we had this fight. But then once it all came back down, and we had some more conversations, it was like, yeah, this is the whole problem in the relationship, is that we're not communicating the things that are in those steps. So, and now we've been like 5-6 months of really solid communicating, and things have been going really good. So.
Dude, that's awesome. I love to hear that.
But
and I love how in the moment, like, you like, bing, And that can be really challenging in relationship because your light bulb turned on. You're like, oh my goodness, I just figured this out. And so one of my challenges in those relationships is I'm an external communicator. I'm on here Facebook Live. I talk to people. I'm talking a lot. I talk to you. I talk to Dustin. I talk to all my friends in my circle. Talk. My wife, on the other hand, is like, I'll be back. I got to go think about this. And then while she's out internally processing, and it's like wants to come out so bad. And so it's one of those things. And then it can be a challenge for when she's ready, she's like, I'm ready. And I'm like, no, I've been holding it on too long. Now I'm mad. And so then I have to like go find a way. And so it's really good. But we know those about each other. We understand that about each other. And I'd say about 8 times out of 10, we lock it up and we do well. And then 9 and 10.
8 times out of 10 is pretty dang good.
Yeah, 8 times. Yeah, I'm really happy with 8 times out of 10. But like sometimes it was, man, I really love that. I was just working with one of my boys today. I think he's actually watching this. And he had a really cool quote that said, I'm starting to realize that my adversities is just receiving answers from the universe, just packaged a little differently than I asked for.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love to hear that again from you. And I love that. And it's amazing to see those things land and just see those things be realized, because like that little thing's like, oh, I am supported, and it's like all of a sudden, and it was something for him. It's like his car broke down and it was just it was like, oh man, my car broke down. But then it was an opportunity for him to bring support in and ask for support in ways that he's not used to doing that. And it's just amazing, like how that little stuff, yeah, me too, Carl. I freaking headbutt like a ram, which doesn't always work well. And so, and that's especially when it's with me. When it's somebody else's problem, I've actually gotten pretty good at just like sitting back and letting them do. So like that challenge with her and me has actually been one of the most powerful, just like Joel was saying, one of the most powerful experiences to be in relationship with somebody and to really allow them to be who they are and to really allow yourself to be who they are. And then like ask for that exchange. It can be the most powerful thing. And you may not love the way that they process, but again, like that lack of love really has nothing to do with them. It's just for whatever reason, we get really in our ego about handling things a certain way. And when there's 7.7 billion people on the planet, and there's 7.7 billion different ways that we look at it, and 7.7 billion different ways that we handle problems and react to stress. And so it's just one of the most important things that I think that you can remember. And, if Holly, if you're watching, God bless you for being on this. I've loved meeting you and Joel and seeing your guys' journey together. So it's really kick-ass.
Wait, do I need to pay attention to what I'm saying? She's in the other room. Is she watching?
Doesn't always work well. So
no, yeah. So I actually bring up the Facebook and slide it so I could just see the chat and then so I think so. Carl Sachs asked, "Is it ego though?" I don't know per se. That's what I call it. I think that it's all attached to me. It's like, so the difference between us, generally speaking, between us and like the rest of the species on this planet is that we have the ability to imagine. We have the ability to make things up, both wonderful and horrible all at the same time. And so I think the ego is just the emotionally created thinking version of us that's connected to our amygdala or our lizard brain, the part that's connected to our fight or flight. And it wants nothing more for us than to be right. It wants to be right all the time. Your ego wants to be right. It wants you to prove to yourself more than anything. And this is one of the things we don't realize, that it wants you to be able to prove to yourself that I was right. And that's one of the reasons, like, I agree, bro. I agree, which that means I totally know that and I'm right. No, I disagree. No, I disagree because I know the right answer and I'm right. So it's just like these ways that we sneak it in there with our language, just like to validate ourselves to be right. So one of the things with the ego that can be really interesting is that for me, because I love to win. Love it. Love to win. I've had to retrain my ego that actually stepping back and listening more and speaking a little bit less and noticing and allowing myself to notice the way that people show up and like their patterns in relationship to my patterns is a more effective way for me to win. So I still get to be right, but I get to fight less. I get to enjoy my life more. And 8 times out of 10, me and my wife can handle situations like adults, whatever that word means. And so, yes, the answer to me, yes, I do think that it's ego. But it's just like the definition around that is like people are like, the ego is bad. Well, it's not. It's just a word that, you know, the way we look at it is something that makes us do. But it's really just, it's just a portion of us that loves the things that we love. And then we can practice to approve of or value different things, but it just takes a certain amount of action and determination and practice to alter the things that is. I don't know. I hope that answers your question.
So that kind of circles me back a second to something I wanted to ask you. So like
Go for it.
my ego in the traditional sense of ego, or my internal voice, like when I get into a spat with somebody, or even something that didn't turn into a spat, I walk away and it's going in here, you know, like the things I didn't say or the things I want to say, or I'm walking through the conversation, like I'm going to start out going really nice to this person, but if they say this, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say this, you know what I mean? And so like that was what I was thinking about when you were talking about you and McCare communicating differently.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, go ahead.
Well, something like to the point of that, because that's I don't know, we're not in the same head, but that's my version of you know, while she's going away and thinking.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing is essentially now. And then you brought up our ability to imagine. And you know, I'm a hypnotist, so we do things inside the head. So one thing that I have to stop doing, that I have worked really hard, is to stop doing that, because as you're doing that, you are subconsciously in your lizard brain going through all of the exact things as if you were having that real fight.
For sure.
So you're putting yourself, so like you're staying mad at that person, and you're going through this whole thing, and you're having your side of the fight. Everything inside you is having that fight as if you were right here with the person, you know, except for that person's not there. So you've got, not only are you going through all those emotions and all those negative things, but like that person is probably at work or like out, like having lunch, eating a cheeseburger, not a big deal, not even thinking about you at all. And then when it comes time to lovingly communicate, you guys have been fighting for 7 hours.
Yes.
Except for the other person wasn't a part of it.
That's me. That's totally, you just described me. Like she's out there processing, like making dinner, hanging out with the kids. And this was one of the things that this was something with my ex. My ex was able to come home and like lovingly like, hi pets, nice to see you. And then look at me and be like, roll on by. And I'd be like, so dude, that's I never even thought about it that way. And like that whole time, your body's releasing cortisol and all this freaking adrenaline and all your fight or flight's on. And I think one of the most important things too for that, and it's just like you said, it's like you're holding the spear that you carved, you're wearing the loincloth, and saber tiger's right there. I
love your saber tiger analogy. It's awesome.
Saber tiger, dude. And so it's really interesting. And it's funny too, because it's a story that I tell all the time. You've heard me say the saber tiger probably 100 times. But it's like the more and more we talk about this, the more and more we have these discussions, the more I can be like, oh, Joel just said that in a way that really landed. Maybe I can get to 8.5 out of 10.
Nice.
You know, which is important. Oh man, I got goosebumps. I love that.
It's just because like, so and it connects even further. What was the book? The Talent Code. So I read this book, The Talent Code, right? And it's all about myelin in your brain. And it's basically, to sum it up really shortly, is basically the more times you practice something, the more times the myelin insulates the pathways in your brain, right? So if we put it into that, so now we can put visualization into real practice. And so we're myelinating those brain pathways either way, whether we're visualizing doing something or whether we're actually doing something. So that is another feather in the cap of if you are wandering around or just standing in the corner milling over your entire fight or the things you're going to say, or she says this, I'm going to say this. You are so actually really having that fight inside yourself with yourself. So not only should you not be mad at somebody when you're not with them because it doesn't affect them, it only affects you, but it's that whole same thing as you like, people don't realize that we can just think about things and we're actually doing them.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100% on that, which proves to me that we're like in the matrix.
Absolutely.
In some way, shape, or form, whether the machines have us plugged in or God has us plugged in, it's all the same to me. So
Right.
no, it's really interesting too. And it's like, but I think it's also really important to say that while you're imagining that fight with that other person, it's like Fight Club. You're just punching yourself in the face.
Yep, absolutely.
You know? And at the end of the show, when he's like, I'm holding this gun, like you're oh man.
Now,
so good.
So to take it one step further,
do it.
Why don't we have the positive conversation? I mean, like just in general, like any of us, yeah. Why don't, we told the whole, apparently the unfortunateness of the system and the lizard brain is that for some damn reason, it all tends to be wired negatively. But like, if you take time to think about it and you're like, I'm going to go through the process of, here are the things that I'm going to say. Here are the positive things that I'm going to say. When I say, I'm glad we had that fight, and she says, you're fucking crazy. Duh. Like, and now I've been playing in the fight. I don't have the positive retort.
Yeah.
But if I was thinking about positively, you could go through the exact same thing in your own mind and be ready to be on the positive energy side, especially when, like knowing your partner, again, if your partner is readily on the positive side of it, then might it be more powerful to visualize the conversation going well?
I imagine, yes.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, but it's so easier said than done. And I think it's I believe that my physical body is wired to be more scared than more brave.
Mm-hmm.
It's because, but it's interesting too.
But that lands on fear-based versus love-based.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the spectrum we're talking about, but it's just like, but it's interesting too, because is it really a fear-based? Is it just a fear-based versus rewards-based? And how, because when I talk about the cave, it's like, I don't want to go outside because I'm scared of getting eaten. Yet I don't want to stay in the cave because I'm scared of not having anything to eat. And so one of those fears eventually takes over, and that fear drives you out. And then when you overcome and you actually get the food and you make it back, you're like, oh, dopamine. Yeah. Boom. Endorphins. I'm awesome. And so it's really interesting because but I think it's also like we have to go out of our way to train ourselves to know bravery. Absolutely. You have to be scared to be brave, Carl. And I agree. I think it means that's the only time you can be brave. And so, but no, I think, Dave, is just we can control our conversations. Is when we slow down, we can train ourselves to realize that the reward that you can, I think you have to slow yourself down. And if you're not taught that at a very young age, you have to slow ourselves down. And it's really interesting too, because our emotional development as humans, what would our emotional development look like 250,000 years ago, like in the cave in Africa? Is it the same? Did we have as complex language? Do we have these kinds of conversations back then? Or was it just food? So I guess it's just an interesting question
of when we developed away from the lizard brain.
Oh, I don't think we've developed away from the lizard brain at all.
Well, on top, the conscious on top of it.
Oh, right. Well, so yeah, and that's just the interesting part. You ever read that book, Sapiens? It's really interesting. It's more or less just like what the perceived from 150,000 years ago to now, like starting in Africa and our evolution as humans, and how there was probably like 5 or 6 different species of us, and the ones who won were the ones that brains developed over this.
Mhm.
They assume back in the day, because there's so many stories where there's like 10, 11, 12 foot tall people in different lands, but they were, there's those in the Bible, and they've got that Goliath skeleton somewhere that somebody found, if it's real. And it's interesting. Because I think that like our emotional portion, or the amygdala, or not the amygdala, or our ego or whatever, I think that that's just an upgraded version of our lizard brain. That's just, and I was talking to Dustin about this on here several weeks ago, about how your lizard brain's like an upside down Ponzi scheme. It's like the pinnacle at the bottom of the triangle that just, and like whenever you slip and fall, and you fall and you just fall right back down into this spot, like right back down into here, fornicating, fight or flighting, like, what are we doing? And so it's just an interesting thing now. It's just, and because we live in the matrix, or this reality is a projection of us either way, I think that fail safe is so, so, so strong, because if we were able to break free of that, we would ruin this reality. Like that's the strongest fail safe that there is, built deep down in here, where it's plugged in, and it's just like,
Wow, that's pretty cool. I never thought of that but it makes sense, because
it makes perfect sense.
and because that's the whole point of like self-actualization, or like, some religions where you're trying to ascend, get out of the body, so that's you want the few who can delete the failsafe or beat the failsafe.
Well, they beat the failsafe, and their body splits open, and they just turn into a beam of light, and they just evaporate into the ether. And so it's just one of those things. And like even the Dalai Lama and Gandhi, like they experienced ego or lizard brain, like they had to have, but they were just such practiced meditators that they were able to keep those gaps in between times of trigger like as wide as possible, and then probably were able to overcome them really quickly. My assumption. And it's just an interesting, man, I could talk about this subject forever.
Yeah, it's the deepest of rabbit holes. Because I believe that down in there is so in my training we talked a whole lot about limiting beliefs. And how, like, literally one of my mentors is like, the only reason that anyone can't do anything is because they don't believe that they can. So like we even had a hypothetical conversation. I'm not going to say that anybody believes that people can actually fly, but we had a hypothetical conversation that it makes sense that the reason that people have never flown before is because that nobody has ever flown before, thus nobody believes that they can do it. Right. And like when you put it in, it doesn't even exactly have to mean that, but when you use that as the context for understanding, like, can you run your own business, or can you lose some weight, or can you do anything it is that you want to do? Like, the only single crux, at least in my opinion, is belief.
Yeah.
And it's like, so when we talk about like religions or like, more importantly, like miracles or something like that, or healings or something like that, like it doesn't have anything to do with the actual structure. It just has to do with the belief in the structure.
Because one of the things, I read this book 2 months ago called Everybody is Wrong About God. And I talked about it on Facebook for like ever because it was so fascinating. But they talked about the three most powerful psycho-emotional needs are like your need to belong or community, your need to have meaning, and you're like, where do we come from? Like it's super, super powerful, like those needs. And then I don't understand the question, Dave. Can you ask it again? So like those three, where was I going with this? I derailed myself. Yeah, but anyways, it was just like the only thing you really need to fill any of those needs is a belief in something that answers that question to the things that we aren't able to answer. So we say, well, I will believe in this, or I believe in that. And it's something that, you know, whether God is real or not, like we're not able to prove it. There's no way to prove it. Some people say they can to themselves, but you're not going to be able to, like, I can't prove it to you, or you're not going to be able to prove it to me. And if you can, like, again, I think it's like it's breaking that failsafe, and then it ruins the purpose of this place. It ruins the purpose of experiencing in order to be, you know, so.
I don't know, ruins it might be, because at that point you might have that'd be hard to say too, experienced what it has to offer and realize that you're moving on.
Well, you're just done.
Yeah.
It's time to go buy a new game.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like if it's like you beat the game and it's like, okay, I'm not going to play this anymore because I figured it out. Or it's like a Rubik's Cube. Or I need to, once I figured out the Rubik's Cube, okay, well, now I need to do this in less than a minute. So it's like, so in the context of, and this is just fun to think about. Like once you beat the game, in Neo's case, he got unplugged and he woke up on a ship and they're like, hey, you need to get your quals done because we have jobs for you to do. Like, how does he know that that's just not the next level? Is it just deeper? How does he doesn't know that that's the Matrix too? And so that's one of the things. And if somebody's operating us, if somebody unplugs from us, do we even know that? And do we just carry on with somebody else plugging into us or a different version? And then that kind of breaks into the multiverse and then all these other things. And I had this conversation with the client that I had a particularly strong connection with. And it was like this really, really, it's like, man. And then you start to think of it as like, well, I don't need any more of what our relationship now is here, because if the multiverse is real, then that relationship exists in a different universe or in a different timeline or in a different, you know. Yeah, for sure, Dave. I think that's exactly what it is, because that when you accept that stuff as faith, then you fill those needs that we have as people. And it's one of the reasons that religion is so powerful and people are drawn to it so much, whether it's real or not. I'm not claiming either way. It's just fun conversation. So it was really fascinating. One of the things, it was really fascinating. I don't want to get in that too much, but it's just,
But I like your piece about the fail safe. Kind of always, it's almost like the thing that I always say, there's something, because I always like to think that, like, so there's something built into humans, into our brain, into how we are made, that faith or belief or whatever it is like, again, back to the limiting belief. So if you delete all of the limiting beliefs, then now you have positive belief that you can accomplish whatever it is, or that, you know, healing can happen, or, you know, whatever it is. So if you truly believe these things, like true unquestioned belief, then whatever it is that you believe comes true. And in your analogy of some kind of fail-safe, your belief would be tripping the fail-safe. And then you can essentially bend the universe to your will, figuratively speaking. You know, there is a point scientifically where we would say that ends, you know, you bending the universe to your will, although there are plenty of unexplainable things that happen. So
lots.
And I used to be firmly, I used to be what I like to refer to as a militant atheist, which
they talk about that in the book too. They talked about that in the book.
Did they call those guys assholes?
No, they said that they were just as dependent on, they were using atheism to fill in the three things, to fill in their meaning and their origin. And they're like, oh, well, I don't need that because I have this. And it's like, it fills it in. And so the fail-safe like takes care of itself in a way.
Well, the thing that's hard that I found that I find that a lot of atheists do, or people who shun, maybe not just atheists, but people who actively shun other ideas is religious ideas and those hierarchies, is I go, well, I find my faith in the scientific method. And then anything that comes out of a journal or out of collegiate, you know, articles or those kind of things, I'm just like, oh, that's stone cold fact, because a couple of scientists looked at it together and agreed that it was fine. You know, it's peer reviewed. So bam, thus literally replacing whatever your religious texts are. And just having, and again, just having blind faith, like, oh, science, it was in science. It's,
yeah, because you have, and again, it's like, you're not able to prove that. Like, it's like, so we talk
not
about
actively doing the experience, not actively trying, just, and really most of the time, personally, not even actively reading the article, just reading the title and going, bam, there's a fact, I'll pull it.
Fact. Yeah, it's really, really fascinating because it goes both ways, because science, again, just replaces those three needs.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like, oh, it's the Big Bang. That's where we came from. Oh, okay, cool. It's Big Bang. My origin thing's done. It's done. So no, I don't think he is confusing agnostic and atheism. I think I would say that Joel and I are both agnostics that are in awe of the universe.
I can agree with that for sure.
So for me specifically, I'll be very, very real about my faith. I was raised Seventh Day Adventist growing up, and there was a point in my life when I was just like, nah, yeah, of course, Dave, you can play devil's advocate for reals, but at the same time, I don't even think it's definitely necessary, because Joel and I, neither of us will say that God isn't real. That's my opinion. The farther and farther, and me and you've talked about this specifically, the farther I get away from organized religion, the more I believe in God. The more I do, the more I look up in the skies and be like, there's got to be something out there. And it's just, I don't know. And like me connecting like this and having conversations with people and doing more of this work, the more I feel like, okay. But then again, I could just be playing devil's advocate to myself and replacing my psycho-emotional needs for this and that and that. And it's just fun conversation, and I like to philosophize. So
yeah. Well, it became apparent to me when I couldn't exactly say that there is a God in any traditional sense that someone else says that there is a God, but there is definitely intelligence that exists within the universe that I believe we have the ability to tap into. And whether we're just being grateful for what's happening, so more good shit keeps happening to us because we see it, or whether there's a intelligent entity in the universe throwing that at us, or whether we can actually plug in to this central intelligence, like all those are just questions. But like I can see when you choose to, when you operate within what the universe is telling you to, in my ideas, things change.
Mm-hmm.
And so it becomes personal anecdotal evidence, just to go like, okay, well, there's got to be some kind of something somewhere. And if that's just like the roots in Avatar, and like we can all living beings can find this plane and connect upon, and that then owns a universal intelligence, like that sounds pretty possible and pretty cool to me. And like I can get down with that. And then so what's to say that universal intelligence wouldn't be held as God in some way?
Well, that was one of the coolest parts of the book, is that when the guy was writing it, he said that I definitely believe there is something that is God-like. I don't think that we have it figured out. I think we have a lot of really, really cool stories that help us morally and blah, 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 that do these things. But those same really cool stories come with war and prejudice and like hate, like flat out hate, like all of them. At least everyone that I've known, maybe Buddhists. I don't know. I don't see a lot of Buddhists causing hate out there yet. Like it's just like there's all sorts of stuff that people are like, this is absolutely right. People that oppress people within their own family because of religious beliefs and structures. Huge to ignore. Spiritually, it is huge to ignore. Reiki, yoga, Wim Hof, awesome, fascinating stuff. All this is paranormal. Just all the paranormal and chakras. Science doesn't have an answer for. No, I think that's when Joel, when he first brought up the science, the chakras and stuff, I bet you there is science out there for the chakras. And I think when Joel brings it up and he's talking about like somewhere between my emotional chakra and my communication chakra, there's this boo. To me, I was like, oh yeah, you're just not able to communicate your emotions to your wife.
Even as you're reiterating that, like I just got super uncomfortable, because like it wasn't And it's always the things. So like, again, back when I was being an atheist, I always thought it was all bullshit, you know? And I even went, as I was getting ready to go to this training, I was like, they're going to do some kind of Reiki stuff at this training. That's stupid. And then it was like, it's like that thing where, you know, psychics, generally we understand that psychics exist. Like they're going to say some roundabout things that are going to give a hint, and you know what I mean? And you're going to build it, and you can see those connections. And man, I tell you what, in conversations with my mentor who was doing Reiki readings on me, I was actively trying to find every reason that the things, you know, that she, you know, like, did I say something 3 days ago that she connected, you know, today or something like that? And I actively couldn't. And there's just so many times in conversations where it just fits so well. And then the other piece goes, like, there's that final piece that's like, no, it could be bullshit. Yeah, okay, it could be, but it also makes me happy. And she's saying things, saying things that are helping me improve my life. So then, like, if it's bullshit, then the people who believe the bullshit have it figured out, because the point is not to be right. The point is to be happy. And this makes me happy. So, okay, if I'm wrong, so what? I was happy.
Yeah.
And you know, with that, the chakra conversation, it was just the way that you know, the belief comes from the way that the conversation happened. It was, do you like this? She made me do these chakra clearings, of course, because I was going through Reiki training. And she asked me, she said, do you like the chakra clearings? I said, no. I said, honestly, they're making me physically uncomfortable. And then she goes, what chakras are you on when you get uncomfortable? And that's when I discovered on my own, you know, oh, well, it's probably between, it's usually, and I was even roundabout way. I didn't think, I don't know exactly which one. Is somewhere between the throat and the heart. She goes, well, what are those two? And she made me explain it, you know, to while she was teaching me. And I was just like mid-sentence, I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah, I love that she was like, hey, well, you tell me what they are, because then you can land on yourself. It's really, really cool.
She's fantastic. And again, that's part of the reasons why I believe it, is because it's not somebody telling me this is what you need to know. It's discovering and finding it on my own. And to go, like, for that to be a real life issue, and for it to be presented in, you know, so yeah, she told me that was I was driving in my car after a fight with my wife, but the physical sensations were happening lying in my bed in the silence with earbuds in at varying times throughout, you know, the days. It was being presented to me just to interpret.
I got one more thing. So I've reduced my screen time 3 hours a day over the last 3 weeks.
That's dope. I'm so addicted to my phone.
Dude, it was ridiculous.
Up until now, I've never attempted anything like that.
Oh, dude, it was an interesting thing. I'll tell you a quick story, and I've talked about this story the last 3 times we were on here. So I had something weird was going on with my best friend, Jason. He lives in Colorado, and there was just something weird about our relationship that I was like, I called him up. I was like, hey, man, I talked to Dustin here about it. I was like, I think I have to break up with my best friend. And he's like, oh, whoa. He's like, that's really serious. And then I like kind of told him, he's like, I don't know, man. I think there's something more to this here, because Dustin's always holding me accountable. Thanks, Dust, wherever you are. I hope you're not like, I thought he was supposed to be here, but whatever. Story is, so I called my best friend. It's like, hey, man, this relationship has to evolve, or we got to break up. Like, I don't really know. Like, that's all I have. Like, I'm just stuck like that. Just like you're saying, something's stuck here. That's the only thing that I can say. So we agreed to take a break. So this is the one thing that I changed for a week. Me and this friend, we scheduled an actual face-to-face call like this, because he lives in Colorado and I'm in Hawaii. And we didn't talk for a week. And so 2 days before we're supposed to talk, my iPhone's like, your screen time has gone up to 22%. And I was like, and then we had this talk the next week, and it was like, we had this amazing conversation. And then I did the math. I was like, I just saved 7 hours a week. I've done yoga almost every day since I found that out, because now I believe that I have time to do yoga every day, because before I didn't believe that I had that time. And then before, I didn't look at my screen time on my phone, because I didn't believe that I could do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the episode with Dustin, I was like, all right, I got to put my phone on gray. I'm not going to text message my best friend anymore. And I'm going to not touch my phone for at least a half hour first thing in the morning when I wake up. All things that I've heard that I should do, all things that I deep down believe that I couldn't. So since then, that was 3.5 weeks ago since I started having these feelings. I'm like, now my screen time it was like over 6.5 hours to under 4. And
Wow.
so I have 3.5 extra hours a day to do literally anything I want. And it was just this event, just like following that thread. And so kind of this whole thing. So what this ties for me is that there's something out there that's sending me signals. I feel it internally though. And this is a quote that I really like. My friend says that I believe, this is what I believe, that we are all part of that which contains the entire illusion. Use illusion for like as metaphor for whatever you believe in. I am part of that which that contains the entire illusion, yet never reveals itself. And I think like that's the best way that I can describe that failsafe. And when you were saying, oh, we can tap into that, yes, I think we can. And on this specific plane being planet Earth, where there's 7.7 billion of us, we can all tap into a whatever percentage one of 7.7 billion is. We can tap into that much information. And that's just on this scale. And then when you make it universally, like it's just that big. And so the fact that I have access to all of this, and I'm getting goosebumps just saying this, the fact that I have access to all this information, yet I'm only able to process so much of it, is proof to me that there is definitely something bigger out there. You know, it doesn't prove what it is. And the more that I have this conversation, the more I scratch, like the tiniest scratch in the surface of what that it might be. And when I finally figure it out, I'll split and I'll just evaporate into light into the universe and my game will be over. And so that's what fills my 3 beliefs right there, is this structured framework that I've created for me based on all the stuff and all the stories. And yet really, it's like they're all very, very similar as far as the love side goes, but they all contain the very similar side on the fear side as well. Mm-hmm. And so it's fascinating. I don't think any of us are right. I don't think any of us are wrong. And we're all here to experience and figure that out. So
keep digging, man.
Yeah, man.
Because like as I'm hearing you dig, I'm like, man, you're like starting to scratch the surface of some of the really weird people I know. Like this is do weird shit. So like I literally know weird people who they're like, I like to go to the beach. Right? They're like, I like to go to the beach. And they're like, sometimes I just at the end of a long day, I'll just go to a beach, right? And so like you just have to, sometimes you have to decipher these conversations, like the people that you're talking about. And I'm pretty sure that some of these people that I know like go in the corner and they sit in the chair and then they go to
the beach. Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying that they just close their eyes and imagine that they go to the beach. I mean, they go to the freaking beach. And it's like, again, it's just a jump of belief of, and again, this is being a hypnotist, seeing some of the ways we imagine things and we create. So what is the difference between something we visualize from an electrical impulse on the brain? What is the difference from real perception? You know, this table here, this camera here, like then just closing my eyes, visualizing it as vividly as possible. What is the difference in the experience? And then if we're in the matrix, where really are you?
Yeah, where really are we?
And so like this is part of the thing that I'm talking about, like limiting beliefs. You don't believe that you can go to the beach without leaving your house because you don't believe you can. But the crazy people that believe they can are some of the happiest people that I've ever met. So if they're wrong, who cares? They're happy.
So freaking, man, I could talk about this forever. I'm just looking up something to.
You gotta quit eating meat to do that, though. Apparently.
Say that one more time.
So you gotta quit eating meat to do that. Apparently.
What did I say? I don't remember what I said.
No, what I said is to like traveling with your mind. You can't kill things.
Yeah.
And travel with your mind.
No,
so
have you read the book?
Someday I'm gonna have to. It's on my list.
Yeah, I just finished it as the last. It's about a half a book ago that I read them. I have to do another book that I'm not going to finish, and then I started something else. It just is what it is. It's just, I started this book. I was like, oh, I got to like half of it. I was like, this just isn't for me. And if I'm going to burn so many calories reading this book, and I'm just not about that life. It's okay. There's plenty of information. I'm not going to miss at anything. There's something else that'll fill that hole. I don't know if I necessarily have a response for you, Dave. Dave asked, what about all the framework we didn't create that interface with minute by minute? Entropy is a huge proof for me of one God. So, and I think what you're saying, and I think it's really interesting because I don't really know what all that means. So I'm just going to be admitted in that. Like, you asked a question that went over my head. Yet that I think we all find proof in it in a different place. I think we all find proof of whatever we need to find proof in a different way. And so it's
and I think
yeah, that's really the only response I got for that one, Dave. So yeah, I'm gonna mute you because you got your volume on over there because there's a delay on our Facebook. No, it's all good.
I was trying to read the comments so that I could try to keep up.
Oh yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I don't know, Dave. It's just for me that's like and again, I'm not here attempting to disprove it. I'm really not. I think I'd be so arrogant to choose that mission in my life. For somebody that's this teeny inside of all of this to prove that there's nothing intelligent about this, I feel like that's the most arrogant thing in the entire world. Say, I'm going to go about it. But then again, it's just like, I think it's just as arrogant in a way to say that you can prove it. So I just want to be in it and be here to experience what I experience. And I'm just now I'm like, do I really believe that? I'm checking in with myself. I don't know. Yeah.
So I think that there's one of the things that I had to learn in this process is like the truth, what I used to consider the truth, what I still kind of consider like facts, like, you know, peer-reviewed scientific fact. I still put a lot of value in that. That's part of my structure. But like, there's the truth. And then again, when it comes to believing, and like, I don't know what the mechanism is, but whatever it is that you believe, somewhere internally, if you delete the negative thought about it at all, it just becomes automatic action, like flow state, you know?
Yeah.
So whatever it is that you believe, if you can believe it so much that you enter flow state, then you have zero negative thought about it. Then that thing is what makes it possible. So again, it's the truth as in fact versus your truth, the thing that you believe that holds the power. And that, you know, it's if you believe that you can win an Olympic medal, well, then you're going to do all the things that it takes because you know you can do it. If you don't believe you can do it, then why put the effort in? And you'll never do it. You know, it all rolls together. Like, you know, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. You know, as simple as that is, it's a super simple concept that you can take all the way to going to the beach.
This is just what I needed today, bro. No, I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you jumping on.
Awesome, man. Well,
cool.
I enjoyed talking to you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
So
thanks for everybody hanging out. So now that the time changes happened on the great mainland of the United States of America, and I'm still the exact same time here in Hawaii, this is actually going to bump to 7 p.m. on Mondays evenings. Dustin's normally here. Dustin might still be in Africa. He may not be here today intentionally. I'm not 100% sure. That's okay. Joel, thanks for being here, brother.
No worries. Thanks for having me, man.
Super fun, dude.
Yeah, and, I needed to get back into this
conversation. Have you on here again, and I'll leave you with this as a cliffhanger, and then we can talk about this offline or something. That I've actually participated twice in a hypnotist show, like comedy style. Both times I faked it and just stayed on stage and just pretended. Maybe that meant I was hypnotized. I have no idea. But it's just one of those. Was I actually hypnotized and I was just pretending that I was pretending? So no.
But you're saying that the hypnotist didn't present you as the individual of any solid proof that you had entered another state of mind.
Yes, actually, yeah, that's actually perfect. But at the end, it was just like I took it as a challenge to make everybody believe I was hypnotized. So that was just like the thing for me too. So Yeah. So I didn't ruin the show because I
Yeah, right.
yeah.
No,
Right
I just kicked those guys off. But yeah, I mean,
No, for sure.
I'm here anytime. We can do some goofy stuff through this thing here.
Yeah, man. I
So
dig this stuff.
whatever you want to do, or
Hi, man.
I don't know, whatever you want
Cool,
to
I'm
do,
gonna
man.
go. I can hear my family needs me, so I'm gonna go get
All
it.
right, man. Go
Bye,
be a
brother.
good dad.
Thanks a
Have a
lot.
good
Hey,
night.
thanks for everybody hanging out. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a good one.